How long did it take you to create this movie?
From script to screen, 5 years.
How did you come up with the money to provide?
We got so many no responses, so many no's. My business partner was one day finally like, what if we just make it with the sliver of money that we have? It wasn't that big, yes, we get to make our movie. It's, oh crap, I know what that's going to take.
Was there struggles while you were making the movie?
It was more than just stress of filmmaking. The devil doesn't want this movie to get made.
Show 600. We are at the 600th show of The Real Deal with Barb, and I have an incredible guest with me today. It's the one that is usually behind the scenes, Luke Van Mol, that makes this whole production possible. That is our special guest today that just produced The Miracle Mile, a movie definitely worth seeing. But it didn't come easy, and yet they prevailed. Luke, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be in the seat I'm usually filming.
It's so fun, isn't it? You have done so much for us and for our show. You're always there. You always bring the professionalism. Thank you. How did you plan? How did you decide to produce a movie?
Well, making movies is always what I've wanted to do. I mean, I've made my first short film when I was 9 years old. It was never a question that I was going to make movies. But what pulled the trigger to make the feature? I'm out of college. My friend Tyler Pocup, him and I had made short films before, he's like, I want to start a faith-based film production company. Do you want to be my business partner? And I'm like, absolutely. This is exactly what I've been praying for. I need somebody to be able to do this with so we can move faster on this kind of stuff. And he had the idea for this film first, actually. The idea that 3 guys are on a road trip, all in different age groups, the cranky old grandpa that doesn't want to be there, the veteran that he would play, and the young guy for whom that's his grandpa. And at that point, he had only had the idea of that, and his veteran character would have some wounds from his military past that would get healed in the end. And I was like, I like this idea so much. It sounds funny. I want to direct. I would also like to help you write it and star in it. And so I brought to the table who my character would be, which after fleshing out a bunch of different stuff, we decided my character is the ridiculously overly optimistic kid that thinks nothing can go wrong. So the veteran's character thinks everything can go wrong, and the grumpy old man, that's just get me out of here.
I saw it. It's funny, hilarious,
Right.
but also has depth and insight in it. So as you're starting to write the script, I never really thought about it, but how hard is it to put a script together? Do people just go off their sleeve, or the whole thing is written out?
Oh, sure. I wake up one morning and I'm like, yep, Miracle Mile. Here's the entire script. No, not like that at all. In our case, it was 6 months. So at first, it was just him and me. Again, we have to flesh out the outline very thoroughly. We have multiple outlining stages before we're even writing fade in on the paper. And so we did 3 months of outlining, 3 months of writing, then eventually as we would get towards actually getting it produced, then we would bring in our friends Denise Churchill and Corey De Silva to do polishes on that script that really brought it to the screen level.
Wow, and now a movie doesn't just show up, because this show costs money too. Things cost money. So how did you come up with the money to provide for the show? Did you find sponsors? How do you go about that?
That took 3 years. 3 years of this whole process.
3 years.
We started with, of course, part of that was writing the script. 6 months of that was writing the script. And then we tried different venues of fundraising. We tried doing it through a producer that Tyler knew out of Hollywood, which unfortunately didn't work out. We spent some money on him trying to get a development deal made, which is basically with him and his team making a pitch deck that says, here's what we think the budget will be, here's who we think the cast could be, here's how much they estimate that could make, and then pitch that around to show to everyone, hey, look, we did our homework, we know what we're doing, and even then it was still like, little bit. One decently sizable donor, but it was still a sliver of the several hundred to $1 million budget we were hoping for, and after a while of that not really doing much, we were like, let's try to adapt our strategy. Usually if something's not working, God might be saying, okay, you learned something there, I'm going to bring you in a different direction. What direction are we missing? We found about one faith-based film studio that was taking in proof of concept short films with the possibility of doing a wider fundraising campaign for them. So we're like, well, I hate fundraising to begin with. Let's make a short film.
We all do. We all do. Yeah, I get it.
So we spent 10 months making 10 minutes of the completed film. It would end up being part of the completed film. And then we had to take a few months off because I would end up getting married during that time, which could be a whole show in itself. And when I was finally back, moved in with my wife and ready to get ramped up on the film again, we submitted it to those people. They said no.
After all that.
We somewhat prepared for that, and we still pitched it to some more, but we got so many no responses, so many no's. So after a lot of disheartenment from that left and right, Tyler, my business partner, was one day finally like, what if we just make it with the sliver of money that we have? I will say it's under $100K, and we just make it locally. We're gonna need to pull a bunch of favors. What if we tried it that way? And I accepted, but I'll admit it wasn't that big. Yes, we get to make our movie. It's, oh crap, I know what that's going to take. I've made numerous short films. I know how hard this is going to be. This is not going to be easy, and there are going to be a lot of parts that aren't fun. So I said yes, but with a, okay, we're going to battle mindset, not a we're going to be famous mindset.
And so, you know what we're going to do right now? Why don't we take a look at that clip right now? We're going to look at the teaser here, and I wonder if you fall in love with it like I did.
All right, what's the pitch?
Grandpa, we're going on a road trip.
We don't even have a bicycle, much less a car.
Our chariot.
I'm not going to be responsible for anyone's safety again.
Would Sergeant Swanson want you to back down from this? Or would he say you've got what it takes?
It's official. I'll be at your debut on Sunday.
You're coming all the way to California? For me?
I'm staying right here in Idaho.
Hey, get off the road, you lily-livered sapsucker!
We're hit!
Is your grandpa enjoying the trip?
He's having the time of his life.
You think I like making trouble?
We've almost been arrested. Twice.
At this rate, we're not going to make her debut anyway.
I expected everything to go as planned. This once.
You're the only one that can get us the rest of the way. You have what it takes.
Are you ready to inspire and change lives? You can make a difference for a better tomorrow. God created you for more. You matter. There is an unprecedented pandemic of forgotten hearts. You can bring hope and answers. Inmates feel alone, afraid, and abandoned. Now is the time to find, to stand, to change, and transform lives. God loves them unconditionally. Adopt a Champion empowers inmates to be a champion within themselves, within their family, and in the world. There are 3 ways you can help. Become part of our team, pray, and donate. Together, we can make a difference. You can start today. Go to adoptachampion.org.
We just saw the clip of Miracle Mile, and How fun was that? The ice cream fan with a megaphone or whatever that thing is called on top. It was hilarious. And with me right now is the director, Luke Van Mol. And we're talking how much it takes to actually create a movie, but also how God kept helping it move forward. So it wasn't easy, and it's incredible watching it. How did you keep pushing through? And did you feel opposition? Was there struggles that you were dealing with while you were making the movie?
Did we? Oh man, so of course there was all those obstacles with getting the fundraising, but then when it actually comes time to make the movie, we're actually making the feature film now, even more stuff would come in. Somewhat in filmmaking, it's standard for things to fall through last minute all the time. Filming days of 12-hour days is what's standard on set. But I would say there was one in particular spiritual attack I had where, a little complicated to explain, we had made that proof of concept short film. After some rewrites were done, some things changed in one of the scenes in that short film version that we were like, we should probably reshoot this for the feature film version. And so we did. We went back to the locations, spent a day of everyone's time to go film that, and I remember watching the footage of that for the first time and going, this is garbage. This is so bad in comparison to what the short film is. I was getting so much anxiety from that, unusual amount of anxiety that, honestly, I hate to admit it, but I was, even in a rage, stomping on the ground, thinking about what's people's reaction going to be if I even suggest going back to shoot it a third time, after I've already asked their time to come back a second. And my wife was at home, and by that point she had been sitting in our room, feeling the tension in the air, thinking maybe there's a spiritual side to this as well.
Really?
She started playing piano, unbeknownst to me, a worship song, and she said it was that moment when she heard my stomping in the living room.
She actually heard it.
Well, yeah. And as we were about to go to bed, she was getting a vision in her mind, just flashing an image of a creature, a shadowy figure, 10 feet tall with horns, standing in the corner of the living room where I edit.
No way.
And so she worked up the courage, without even telling me what it was, to go walk out to the living room to see what it was. And she said as soon as she opened the door, she felt this wave of darkness, of stress that she has never felt so bad in her life. And she was like, there you are. And then told me what it was, and we commanded it to leave in the name of Jesus. And realized that moment it was more than just stress of filmmaking. The devil doesn't want this movie to get made.
Oh, that's huge. I'm just feeling like, wait, I don't even know how to respond.
Yeah, I mean, so
that is what you need to do with deliverance. That is it right there. You call it on the spot and you deal with it. And what a gift. Erin, your wife, was that moment, because you're dealing with frustration, but there's a whole new level behind the scenes going on that you're not even aware of.
Absolutely.
Did that change things at that moment for you with the production?
Well, at that point, I started plastering all kinds of Bible verses about having authority over the devil around that area where I work, and I've never had a demonic attack quite like that since, but I would say, I should mention, rewinding back to the short film, that before we had even commissioned starting making the proof of concept, I almost as soon as we started pre-production, fell into a state of clinical depression, as I would later find out it's called. But I had never experienced that before. So
what is clinical depression? How does that feel?
Oh man, every day, wake up, feel like crap, fatigued very easily, and that's while you are figuring out every single detail, everything you see on screen for 3 months. And waking up every morning wondering, when on earth is this ever going to be over? Am I even going to have energy for 12-hour filming days on this short film when I'm feeling like this? But then when we finally got there, surprisingly, the first 2 days of filming cured it completely. Like suddenly I came on.
It just left.
Yeah.
It was like it was put on you and then just taken away?
Yeah, it was like, when I brought that up to my therapist after the fact, he was like, I think what this is just instant infusion of all this support from the people helping, of doing what you're passionate about. He said it's rare that happens, but it's great that it did this time. But then filming the feature did the opposite. It's like then by the end of production, I fell back into depression because, yeah, I mean, filming a feature is hard. There's a standard filming day is 12 hours. You count the time we're spending preparing both before and after for the next day, and it's more like 12 to 14 hours, constantly coming on set, and this thing that I've been dreaming about for 4 years at that point, am I going to be able to make it the way we imagined it?
I want to hear more about that. Wow, it's not always easy when you do what God wants you to do, but yet you keep at it and you persevere and something great comes out of it. And it's truly a miracle mile. Stay tuned. We will be right back. People tell me, Barb, I can't hear the voice of God. How can I hear His voice? I used to have a hard time with this too. I spent years learning the difference between my own head and God's voice. When I learned how, my life changed. Transformations that used to take me weeks now only take me seconds. I want to share with you everything I learned in those few years in only 3 hours at no charge. Go to our website, barbtv.org, and sign up for our free course titled Empower a Champion, Hearing the Voice of God. Many of you are struggling in life. There is hope. Our passion is for you to have breakthrough by clearly hearing the voice of God. Go to barbtv.org under the tab Empower a Champion and sign up today. Wow. I never saw you before as depressed or clinical depression and all these other things. It must have taken everything out of you. You're short-funded, you have rejection you're dealing, you know it's a gift from God what you're creating, and then it becomes a fight to get it out. How did that work between you and even your own home and the marriage and everything else? Because usually it strains everything you're dealing with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. To get onto that, by the time filming is done and still dealing with a lot of the negative memories from that, unfortunately I had far more negatives than positives. And then there's financial constraints because like the show, for example, I would have to delegate every episode that I would usually edit to somebody else, and funds leaving the account, and I'm not making anything from this. We're doing it on the cheap. And then I'm left kind of traumatized from all that, but then also with such tight financial constraints, and I was looking at the accounts and I'm like, we cannot afford to stay where we are living for more than a few months.
That's not good.
So financially, the only choice we could have, because I mean, this wasn't going to end anytime soon, I still need to put a lot of time into this, and was not getting as many gigs to begin with. Like a strange thing, as soon as we start the film, then it's like God goes, and now I'm shutting that switch off. You have more time to make the film now. And I'm like, well, gee, thanks, God. Now we can't live here anymore. What's our other option? And the only other thing we could find that we could afford is my parents' house.
Oh, that's awful. I mean, great parents,
sure,
but...
Sure. As great as our parents are, there can be personality differences that make it difficult to live in the same space. And it was making the depression even worse for both me and my wife. And as we're trying to figure out, is there any possible way to prevent this from happening? Erin, my wife, decided to return to college, which we had talked about before, but the topic stressed her out so much and she was comfortable where she was that I just didn't bring it up for a while. But one morning I brought up, if you did go back to college, we'd have access to your father's GI Bill, my parents' college savings for me that can be transferred to you, and that might help. But I said it like kind of half jokingly, but she suddenly perked up and went, I was just praying about that this morning. That might have just been confirmation. And by the end of the day, she came back from work and was like, I think that's what we need to do. Immediately, emotional health goes right back up. But there's still a few more things we need. Like, that's still not enough funds in the account to make it for the next few months she would need before she could go back to college. It would still be another semester before.
So she worked at the
application.
college? Is that or
She
would
worked-
attend
yeah.
as a student?
She was working, was not attending as a student. Like she had put pause on college to do work, spend some time building our life together, and now it was time
So
to go back.
God, even if everything keeps falling apart, and
Sure.
or it feels like it's falling apart, yet God brings the answers all along by not quitting, because there's so many people that give up on that moment.
Right. And there was still one more detail God needed to provide because our savings were drained after filming. So, God, how are you going to let us stay here a while longer? Suddenly, she gets a message from a job that she had applied for several months before as a school teacher for choir. And it seemed like, well, school's almost started. Looks like the answer was probably no. Gets a call going, hey, our last recruit fell through. Can you do it? Like last minute. And that provided what we needed for the next several months.
So God put everything in place. Now, as you're looking back at the movie, which seems like, it almost sounds like a nightmare, to be honest, to producing that whole thing. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. How do you feel you got closer to God through this whole process of frustration, and yet something beautiful came out of it?
There's a lot more trust. I mean, after that whole scenario, I feel a lot more confident now that even when money looks tight, that God still has a way, and perhaps the way is not move back in with your parents like I thought it might have been. And I'm not as stressed with smaller things. Like the worst thing that could possibly happen on this show, as people are running around, I'm like, guys, this is nothing.
Yeah, that has changed total perspective. So as you're looking at the filming, the actors, Grandpa is of course a favorite of everybody, which really it's the whole team that makes it together, all the actors. And he was nasty. He was absolutely nasty, Grandpa. But yet you look at that and the humor that came with, like the spaghetti on the window and different things that were just over the top. As you look back, what was your favorite moment of the film Miracle Mile?
Oh man, I have a lot of favorite moments, but I think everybody's favorite moment of the film is the church scene at the end, which for those who haven't seen it, I'll just say everything accumulates to where this big event where they make it to where they finally have been going to the whole time to see my character's crush from high school make her debut performance at a church. It was some of the hardest things to film, but ended up being the most emotionally impactful in the final movie because what we were doing in the writing paid off. We made sure to have everything in the beginning suggest for the military character that miracles don't happen, God has abandoned me, make everything in his life go wrong, and Act 2, flip it on itself to where in the end, he starts getting healed of some stuff, and that is what makes that moment so impactful. Not necessarily the good things that happened there, but the negative that happened before, and the arc that needed to happen.
Doesn't God work like that all the time? Mm-hmm. Now, if people want to find out where they can watch the movie, or because I know it's been in the theaters, but how can they possibly get a hold to be able to see this? Where can they go?
They can go to our website, mmovalor.com, and there they can sign up to be notified when the film becomes available on DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming. And depending on when you watch this, it might already be available.
How long did it take you to create this movie, if you look back at it?
From script to screen, 5 years.
5 years.
It was about 5 years ago right now that we started writing the script.
Would you do it again?
Only because I had to. I mean, the first of anything is going to be difficult. I understand we're doing something for God. Like this is more than just for us. If God calls you to something, if you don't do that, you're being disobedient. And he didn't promise that it's all going to be hunky-dory. He promised there will be trials and tribulations, but he will still be there in that.
Well, didn't Jesus go through that? You know, from the moment he was born, they wanted him dead. Mm-hmm. From the moment. Thank you so much. It was great to have you on our show, Luke. And thank you again for making this show possible, behind the scenes and everything you do for The Real Deal with Barb. Great to have you.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to let you know, sometimes we feel like we can't do something, but when we really want to go after something, I have a pastor, Bill Johnson, that says this: if you want something, God will give you everything you need. If you want more, go after it. And that's what Luke did. And this is what I want to tell to you right now. If you want more, go after it, and God will provide it. And do not stop for anything. Thank you so much for joining, and I encourage you to watch Miracle Mile. How long did you walk away from Christ?
14 till I was 44 years old.
Partying, having fun?
Everything. I was diagnosed with a brain injury. I had spent a lot of money on second, third, and fourth opinions, which the insurance company wouldn't pay.
And there's no way to provide an income to start paying for them?
None. When I was invited to go to the healing ministry, I didn't have anything else.
God was your last resource.
You know what I said?
What?
I want that.